This is the story of the one. As a custodial supervisor at a high school, he knows that during cold and flu season, germs spread fast. It's why he partners with Granger to stay fully stocked on the products and supplies he needs, from tissues to disinfectants to floor scrubbers. All so that he can help students, staff, and teachers stay healthy and focused. Call 1-800-GRANGER, click Granger.com, or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it done.
I'm good, Monica. I'm really excited to be talking to you. It's raining in England, but this is going to be my sunshine for today. I'll take it. And it rained. What? Mm. Yeah, exactly. It was all you. You are. Well, being an author is a weird thing, but it happens in fits and starts. So most of the time, I'm just me. I just live in a very quiet place with my husband and my two dogs, and I just go about my life and try and fit some writing into my day. And then occasionally you put your author clothes on and you jump on a Zoom or you go to a book thing or a book club. So I wouldn't say that much has changed. I think it's really important to keep yourself real and to stick with people who you knew before you wrote the book. And I also think that the way to write is to live. So I'm just really all about living and getting new experiences. And being an author is honestly being a public author is a very small part of my life. My main part of my life is with real people, real friends, real family. And so I try to keep it that way and try not to get too involved in the whole writer thing and the whole publisher thing, because I think that way lies madness. Oh, definitely. No, I love putting on lipstick and putting on some and talk and there's nothing authors like more than talking about their books. So yes, I do enjoy it, but it's in fits and bursts, and real life is the main thing. No, I grew up. So my dad's Nigerian and my mum's English. And although I was born in England, I moved to Lagos before I was two. So I grew up in Lagos, and I was going to be a doctor before I could walk. It wasn't my choice. It was just Nikki's going to be a doctor. And I went totally along with it. I went to medical school, and it was in year three that I realized this was not for me. And I dropped out of medical school, which freaked my father out. I mean, I think he was heartbroken, to be fair. And it was very much, if you don't go back, you're on your own. So I ran away, ran to England, and I was very much on my own. I got a job in an advertising agency and realized that creativity was where I wanted to be. But I always felt, I think that if you're brought up thinking you have to be a doctor or a lawyer, an accountant, which is very much the African dream, then you're always going to feel like a failure unless you do those things. So I never thought writing was a proper job. Also, I think you can't be what you can't see. So it was only when I started reading things like Chimamanda and Ngozi Adichie, or people like that, that I thought, actually, you can be a writer. It can be something that's worth having. But to be perfectly honest, I wrote Wahala when I think I started writing Wahala when I was 55. So it took me a whole life to realize this was something I could actually do. But to be fair, I think it took a whole life for me to have the experience. It took me a whole life to have something to say. So I don't think I could have done it any earlier. And I definitely, writing as a job didn't even figure in my lexicon when I was younger. Ah, yes. Okay. You're a failure. That's the other option. You're a failure. And that's definitely what I was. Oh, absolutely. Even when you're doing really well, because I had a good career in advertising, it was successful, but I still had failure written on my head in big letters. Yes. I had, I honestly think I had a blessed childhood. I grew up in, I grew up in Nigeria in the 70s. So my second book is very much set when I was there, when I was growing up there. And my dad was a doctor, my mum was a teacher. We had a really lovely middle class life. We used to go to the beach at the weekends to collect cuttlefish bones for my sister's parrot, who's an African grey named Billy. My mum taught in my school and she taught art and the kids loved her because she abhorred corporal punishment and used to shell out cuddles while everybody else, all the other Nigerian teachers were shelling out slaps or head knocks. And I rode around the quiet campus streets because my dad was a lecturer and on my green chopper with my little brother. So as you'll see, this motherless land has got a lot of me in it. I loved growing up in Nigeria. It was I still think of Lagos as home. I was there a couple of months ago for my dad's 90th birthday. And it was a wonderful place to grow up. It was lively, it was energetic, there was music, it was just wonderful. And there wasn't any racism because we have lots of isms. I'm not saying we're perfect. We have a lot of isms. We have tribalism, we have colorism, we have sexism, we have raging homophobia, but we didn't have racism. So growing up there was, I honestly think it was a blessed time. And it was when I came to England at 20, when I dropped out of medical school, that I discovered racism and I discovered that I was the first time I'd ever been looked down on in my life. I didn't like it, but I would on and I have a love of I do love Nigeria. Don't get me wrong, we've got our problems. We do have corruption. We do have lots and lots of problems, but it will always be home. And I always think in everything I write, it's important to show the joy of living in Lagos, the joy of being Nigerian, and to get away from the stereotypes, because I do think the whole of Africa is clouded with this flattening stereotype that almost others us and makes us feel, and it's just so wrong. I mean, even now when I go home, I have people say to me, "Oh, be careful, will you be okay?" It's like, yes, I'll be fine. It's no different to going to Bangkok or to, you know, Cairo. It's a city, it's fine, it'll be absolutely great, but also that's where I'm from. These are my people. So I do love Nigeria, and I think I always want to feature it as a character, as a living, breathing character in my work. I love Ghana. Yes, yes. I read The Trees and it was a wake-up call. The Trees by Percival Everett. And I was honestly shocked. It's about um the it's awful. It's about the hangings and it's just an awful book. Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah. In some ways, it's almost worse when it's done in that sort of typical British understated way. It's almost more painful, that sort of the condescension and this it's like that sort of unconscious bias, which I think is can be actually worse than conscious bias. But yeah, it's hateful. It's hateful. Yeah, yeah. Mm. Yeah. Well, I do think it's taken me a long time to realize that I can be both, not half, and I can be fully Nigerian and I can be fully English and I can be both things at the same time. And I think it's actually wrong for someone to try and take one of them away from me or to try and make assumptions. I mean, the truth is identity is hugely complex. It's very nuanced, and it actually doesn't matter how I feel. Other people are always happy to make decisions for me and to tell me what they think I am and to tell me I'm being too black or I'm being too white or I'm not being black enough or I'm not being white enough. And it's taken me a whole lifetime to think, you know what? I actually don't care what you think. I am happy being me and I'm content with being me. And sometimes that means I'm going to be dancing to rock music like a white girl. And sometimes it means I'm going to be eating eba and egusi with my hands like a proper Nigerian woman. And that is totally okay. And I think you're always told to pick a side. And the truth is, I will never be white. I could say I'm white and people would just laugh at me, but I will always be black. But the truth, I think it's so nuanced. And I think race is complicated. I think it's also ridiculous, the whole focus on race and racism. I think in some ways, what I wanted to do with this book was almost poke fun at it and prod at it and show how ridiculous it is and how irrational it is. Because at the end of the day, it's all about privilege and prejudice. And there's always somebody who wants the whip hand and somebody who has to be the underdog. And I hope you always have to choose, but if I could choose, I would choose both.
This is the story of the one. As a custodial supervisor at a high school, he knows that during cold and flu season, germs spread fast. It's why he partners with Granger to stay fully stocked on the products and supplies he needs, from tissues to disinfectants to floor scrubbers. Also, that he can help students, staff, and teachers stay healthy and focused. Call 1-800-GRANGER, click Granger.com, or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it done.
Absolutely. And also, I don't, my mother's white, my father's black. I don't want to, I love them both, and that you're allowed to do that. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. And I do code switch. I really do. I mean, genuinely, it's not even intentional. I code switch. If I was when I'm in Lagos, my voice changes, my syntax changes, I become loud. Nigerians are ridiculously loud and I love it. And we have exaggerated hand movements and we're very dramatic. And England, we're very understated and we're very apologetic of ourselves. And I do switch between both almost instinctively. It's not sort of, I know when to hug people and when to shake hands. I know when to say auntie and when to say auntie. It's like becomes your common language. But I think everybody does that these days because we all move around so much. So I think we learn to just inhabit the place we're in. Exactly. Exactly. No, exactly. It's which group of friends you're with, or, I agree with you totally. And I don't actually think code switching is a bad thing. I think it's just a human thing. Oh, hell yeah. 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 Yes. Yes. Well, Wahala was snapped up by the BBC and Firebird Productions before it was even published. So, and I'm not writing the script. There's an incredibly clever lady called Teresa Ikoko, who's also Anglo-Nigerian, and she's writing the script. So that's great. And she's wonderful. She was BAFTA nominated for Rocks. She's a star. So I actually, it's a quite hands-off process. I mean, they're very collaborative and they're telling me what they're doing, but it's totally down to them. So for me, it was just this dream come true thing that my first book is going to be on the telly. Is I still have to pinch myself and say, is this really happening? Is this really happening? But my second book, This Motherless Land, is also being adapted for TV. And in this particular one, I'm going to be in the writing room. I'm not writing the script, but I'm going to be involved and sort of on a consultancy basis. So that hasn't started yet, but that's going to be super exciting. I think because it's such a personal book, they kind of want to have they want my involvement a bit more, and I'm really looking forward to being part of it. Monica, the truth is, it just feels surreal. It's, it only feels real at times like this when I'm talking to you. Most of the time, I think this isn't really happening. This can't be true, but it's fantastic. I can't wait to see it. I agree. And we need all the stories. We need all the stories. We need the stories about slavery. We need the stories about trauma, but we also need joyful stories. We need positive stories. We need, so I just think we need to be represented. You can't be what you can't see. So we need to see ourselves in literature and we need to see ourselves in film. You can't. Exactly. Exactly. Monica, I'm exactly the same. And travel and reading is such a cheap way to travel. I've been to India, I've been to Korea, I've been all around America, even though I've only ever visited two places. And it's such a rich way of traveling and seeing how other people live and seeing another point of view. So I totally agree with you. Reading is just the best escape and the best way to learn. So writing a book is such a huge thing. It's a huge undertaking. It takes 2 years at least out of your life. It becomes an all-encompassing thing while you're doing it. So you have to actually really love the idea that you're talking about, or you're going to spend 2 years writing about. And I played with a lot of ideas after Wahala. I thought about other friend groups and other contemporary things. And then I was rewatching Mansfield Park for the upteenth time, and the idea of this girl who's taken away from everything she knows and thrown into this strange alien environment where she has to prove herself over and over again, it just grabbed me and it wouldn't let go. And Funke walked into my head, and she was fully formed. I could see her, I could imagine her, which helps that the fact that Funke was walking out of my house, she was riding my bicycle. I could just see everything about her. So, and it's a very personal book. There's a lot of me that poured into that, and I that idea just kept pulling at me. It tugged at me. At the time, I called it Brown Girl in the Ring because it was Funke was the hero. She was the brown girl, and she was brought to England to live in this cold grey house with her cold grey family in a house called The Ring. And I wrote the first draft, and I wrote it really quickly because it just poured out of me. But when I read it back, I realized it wasn't quite the right story. It wasn't the story I wanted to tell, and that the story was more complicated than that. And it wasn't just about Funke, it was about Funke and her cousin Liv. And it wasn't just about being taken away, it was about being put back. And it was also about love and whether love is important, whether love is strong enough to make a difference between surviving and thriving. And it was about mothers and what's worse, a wonderful mother who's dead or a terrible mother who's alive. And it was about the trauma you inherit and whether you can escape your legacy. It was a much bigger book than I originally intended, which was really annoying because it meant it was so much more complicated. I now had my little sweet book about Funke now turned into this mess that went across decades and went across continents. And it was almost this unwieldy beast that I had to pull together. But sometimes characters tell you what they need to do and you can't help it. You just have to go along with them. And looking back now, I think it was the story I wanted to tell. And it was hopefully a very balanced, nuanced story about belonging and about identity and about privilege and about place and about misunderstanding. So it's quite, but also hopefully it's an entertaining book because I really never want to preach. I never want to lecture people. I just really want to entertain them. And if they happen to take more out of it, then that's a bonus. Yes, of course. Yes. And it does happen. I mean, it happens. It happened, I mean, I watch Roots, Kunta Kinte. It happens. But when I first came to England, Nikki is not my name. My name is Morenike. But when I came here, that was unpronounceable. Too many vowels all in the wrong place. And you got people who can say Tchaikovsky or Dostoevsky, but no way can they say Nikki. So I renamed myself as Nikki in all, and that is about bending and twisting yourself almost out of shape in order to fit in. And I did that to Funke and I turned her into Kate or Catherine. And then I did it again, sent her back and made, and these things are traumatic. I still now, when I hear Nick here, I look up and I think there's so few people now, my mom, my dad, my sister, my brother, a few childhood friends who still call me that. But it's was my name and it should have been my name. But I do think there's some progress. I think nowadays people are less likely to change. When you see people like Lupita, and you think, yes, thank goodness she's kept her name. I do think there's progress, but in 1978, there certainly wasn't. Yep. Yep. Exactly. And tell you that's what it's going to be, and you should be grateful. Yeah. Yeah. She did. Yeah. I think Funke's gift is resilience. And I think that resilience comes from her mother. Even though she lost her mother when she was 9 years old, which is I mean, that's just way too young. Her mother still was with her because her mother had touched so many people, and the people she touched were there for Funke. So I think there's a Nigerian saying "Enyo lashomi," and it's a Yoruba saying. It's really hard to translate, but it kind of means that people are my covering. People, people are what hold me together. People are what protect me. And whenever I think of that saying "Enyo lashomi," it almost gives me goosebumps because I think it's so true that good people are what hold us up. They don't have to be family. They can be, but they don't have to be. They don't have to be friends. But Funke had huge resilience, and then she was held up by good people who were there when she needed them to be. And she never she didn't. I mean, I would hardly call her life blessed, but it was blessed. And I do think in some ways, her mother, Mrs. Lizzie, that's the kind of legacy we should all dream of leaving, where you've touched other people to the extent that they would remember you and they will be good to your kin. And I don't think you can leave more in this world than Mrs. Lissy left. So I got really emotional when I was writing it. I was sobbing at my desk over and over. So I mean, I suppose I did write with the intent to tug at the heartstrings, but I assure you it tugged at mine as I was writing it, because Funke is the best of them. You know, she is. I think I put this quote at the beginning. It's from the Bible. Let the stone. It. She is like the family stone. She is the stone, the cornerstone. She is the best of them. So I do have a real soft spot for Funke. I think I love her. Yeah. I put all of my favorite movies and I have Grease, I have Top Gun, I have Titanic, and I have what's my last one? I have the one with Whitney Houston, Bodyguard. So yes, that was such good fun. I think it also helps ground the reader because, as I said, I didn't mean to write this book that became so big and went over decades, but it was important for the reader to know where they were. So by starting on this quote, they'd realize, hey, we jumped 10 years or 8 years or whatever, and we're now in a different decade, and we're now in a different time. Yes. Isn't that what's wonderful about movies, though? We're watching them and music. We're watching and listening to the same wonderful things all over the world. I think that's kind of wonderful because human beings, we're so similar, although we don't know it. Yes. Yeah, yeah. And we used to watch this American program called Soul Train, and we used to practice our dance moves to Soul Train, and these guys with these big, perfectly round afros. Oh, yeah. I know, spoiler. Oh, Margot, maggot. Yes, yes. Well, I think I think I'm drawn to touch points that keep reverberating through a book. So you had the pearls, which start off very early in the book when Funke's putting them round her mother's neck and become two diff they're so different, the pearls on her mother's neck versus the pearls on Aunt Margot's neck. And even things like food, like the sherbet dip dabs. I just love this idea of anchoring points in a book that sort of it keeps the thread running all the way through and it stops it being this meandering saga. It sort of keeps you grounded a little bit. I also love food in books. So that in Wahala somebody once said that it's basically a long jollof rice recipe, and I was like, yep, I'm down with that, I don't mind. And in this book there's a lot of food, and one of the best things about being mixed race is having Nigerian food and British food and having both of them as your own and being able to claim them both. But yes, even Billy the parrot is almost one of those, he's not inanimate, but he's an anchoring point in the book. You meet him in the beginning and he's still there at the end. And there's something to me about it helping anchor the reader in time and helping keep the universe small enough for the reader to absorb that I just enjoy. I enjoy reading it in other books and I enjoy putting it into mine. Yes. Yes. Yeah. And I think again, it's a bit like mirrors, how Mrs. Lizzie, Funke's mother, is so different from Liv's mother. And, Funke's mother would find joy and find community wherever she went, and Liv's mother would find joy and community nowhere. And I kind of like that juxtaposition because it's people, there's, nature matters and people's human nature does make a difference. Exactly. Exactly. And to think that was her mother's home and it was still the coldest place she could possibly have ended up in. Yes. I know. And I can see that though. I mean, I do think sometimes sometimes siblings can be the most opposite. You know, that you think, are you actually related? You know that feeling when you think, really? Did you come from the same place? Yeah. Yeah. I know. Exactly. It's how perfect. Isn't that the best legacy you can leave to have touched people, people that aren't to have left that impression on someone that it's gonna, I hope that's my aim in life. Please let me be able to leave a good legacy like that. Please. In fact, from tomorrow, Monica, I'm going to be a better person. I'm going to be more Mrs. Lizzie. Yes. Yes. Let me be a good person. I don't want to be maggot. Yeah. And I actually think it was much easier doing it older because at 55 you kind of, you've kind of been around the block a few times. You've been hurt, you've been sacked, you've been promoted. You're kind of used to the ups and downs of the world. And I actually, firstly, I'm always amazed at young authors. I'm always amazed at how can you have something to say at 20 something? I didn't have anything to say. I was talking complete crap. So, firstly, there's that. But secondly, being published can actually be it can be quite a vicious, that they say you shouldn't go and look at your good reads and they say you shouldn't get obsessed by your reviews. But of course you do, and you take the criticism to heart. And I don't know that at 20 or 25 or even 30 or 35, I'd have been able to hack it. So I personally I'm all in favor of waiting till you're a bit older to be published, waiting till you've got something to say and waiting till you've got a really thick skin like mine that can handle feedback, not just bad feedback, but good feedback, because it's very easy to become, high on your own supply and think that you're amazing just because you've been lucky, because a lot of publishing is to do with luck. It's right place, right time, right reader, right. It's obviously hard work comes into it and hopefully talent comes into it. But I honestly think with publishing, like most creative things, there's also a lot of luck that comes into it. So I think being older has actually really helped me. It's helped me keep a sense of perspective. It's helped me not get too upset with a bad review or not get too big-headed with a good one. And it's also, I think, at this stage in your life, you realize what's important. When you get to my age, you've been through most of the emotions. You've had grief, you've had loss, you've had love, you've had, so you're sort of better at processing them. So I have to say, I am hugely in awe of how authors do it when they're younger, because I personally not sure I would have coped. I'm serious, Monica. I'd have been a basket case. I'm an overnight success. It just took 58 years to get there. Yeah, exactly. Plus. it helps that I've got really good friends who put me in my place. You know, if I got high on my own supply, they would be the first people to tell me. I think it helps that I love reading, so I am reading 2 books a week minimum, and I'm reading things that are so much better than anything I could ever dream of writing. So it's easy to see, look, you know, there's so much room for me to do better work. I think it helps that I I live in the country, so I walk a lot. So I think being grounded in, you know, just everyday normal stuff, cooking your own food, cleaning your own toilet, you know, just real life really helps. And I think it's also good that I really like my life. So I actually like the mundaneness of it. I don't get me wrong, you know, tomorrow I'm in London meeting the team that are doing the TV for the second book for This Motherless Land. And it's so exciting, Monica. I've got my clothes set out for what I'm going to wear tomorrow. I'm going to try this new lipstick I bought, and I'm going into London, and you know, I'm so excited about it. But I also know that as I get on the train to come home, I'm going to be like, phew, back to actual normal me, wipe that makeup off my face, you know, so you don't have to. Exactly. Yeah. Monica, you're watching me. I thought we had the cameras off. So exactly that. And that's another thing why I honestly think I am honestly blessed to have achieved this at this age rather than a younger age, when I honestly think I'm not sure I'd have coped as well with this. And I think I'd have become really obnoxious. But so, you know, I've got my best friend's coming to stay this weekend, and she doesn't want to talk about the book, and she doesn't want to talk about the TV. She wants to talk about, you know, what happened on Love Island last week. She wants to talk about, do you think my ass looks good in these jeans? You know, just normal shit. So I think it helps. I think it's really important. I also think it's very difficult to create unless you're actually living. So I think it's really important to just live a normal life. But I do love my little book bits. I'm coming to New York for the launch of this book, and I cannot wait. I'm so excited. But it will be a 3-day gap from real life, and I will honestly be quite happy to get back to real life. I know, I can't wait. I'm going to Brooklyn. I've got friends who live in Brooklyn. I'm really excited. I'm going to walk over the bridge like a proper tourist. We're going there, and I'm going to Century 21. I'm going there, get some discounts. I'm going to do the Empire State Building. I'm going to be such a tourist. I'll be there with my phone out, and I'm really looking forward to it. I worked in New York for a year, years and years and years ago, so I love it. So I'm really excited about it, and I'm going to go to every Barnes and Noble and say, "Do you know who I am?" Just like a proper Nigerian girl. Exactly. Allow me to introduce myself. Oh, God knows. I would say read. I think reading is the best way to learn how to write. I think the more you read, all my childhood wasted reading was not wasted. It was really time well spent. So I think read a lot. I think read really good books that will inspire you. But I also think you should read really rubbish books, because if you read a really crap book, you feel better about yourself when you think, hey, if that got published, I can get published. And that's really important. And I think the other thing to do is to just write, because when you start writing, you find your voice. One of the best things anybody's ever said to me, and it was a really good friend, as she turned around and said, when I read Wahala, I could hear you. It was like you were talking to me. And I think that is the trick, to find your own voice, and therefore it will be authentic. I tend to write about what I know, and it's all fiction. I make it up, but it's grounded in where I've been and so you can speak authentically. I think authentism is just I think it shines through writing. If you read a book that doesn't feel authentic, you're quickly knocked out. It's very hard to suspend disbelief if something jars you. So I think read a lot, practice writing a lot, you know, do a few writing prompts. I think social media, Bookstagram is great for that. You can get people that give you, you know, write 100 words on rain, or write 100 words on a parrot. And it's like a muscle, practice. And also live, because if you live, you've got something to talk about. So the older you are, the better, the more life you've had. It is so hard. With Wahala, I had three characters narrating this story, and they were on this loop. So it was always Ronke, Boo, Simi, Ronke, Boo, Simi. And it got so complicated that even I got confused about who's where, who knows what, who doesn't know what. And I said to myself, book two, gonna keep it simple. It's gonna last for a few days. It's only gonna have one character, and then here I go. I'm traipsing decades. I'm traipsing two characters. I'm traipsing continents. And Monica, I got lost. I got confused. I couldn't work out where I was, who knew what. Does she know she's alive? Does she know she's dead? Where is this person? And it's all in the editing. You have to write it, then you have to read it, and you have to tear it apart, and you have to build it up again and repeat. I think, but first, when I first sent it to my editors, I was on draft 8. I'd written this book 8 times. And the worst thing is then your editor comes back and says, thanks for your first draft. You're like, first? What do you mean first? I have sweat and blood. Surely it's finished. And then you realize, nope, she's found lots of things that don't work, and she wants you to go back to the beginning and rebuild it. But it's like a marathon writing a book. It's a long, which is why you have to love your story and you have to love your characters, because otherwise there is no way you'll be able to invest that much time in them. Next book is going to have one character, one day, maybe a dog, one person and a dog that can't talk. Oh, ah, yeah, 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 a lot happens. Yes, yeah. Monica, I'm so grateful because you've read what I want, what I tried to write, because there's so much nuance in this. And I agree with you. There's much more to Black lives than trauma. And I think we need to read all of it. Yes, all the books. So I'm on social media. I'm on Twitter or X or whatever that man is calling it now. And I am at Nikki O'May, and I'm on Instagram as Nikki May Writer. And I spend way too much time on social media. I should be writing book three, but instead I'm there tweeting and Instagramming. So please follow me, please stay in touch, and hopefully Wahala and This Motherless Land will be on our TV screens before long. And hopefully, if I stop going on social media so much, I will actually get knuckled down and get on with book three. I don't know. Book three is really big. I can see it. I can feel it. I'm getting to know my characters, so it feels real. And I think there might be one more, but who knows? I don't know. I don't know how many stories there are. There's so many stories to tell, though, aren't there? There's so much to talk about, and I am obsessed with seeing people like me on the page. So one thing you can be sure about is every book I write will have someone my color, my background, with my mixed heritage on the page. And I struggle to think of a book I will do that won't go to Nigeria, because it's always an excuse to go home. Yeah. Exactly. Not too much Botox. Thank you, Monica. Thank you for doing what you do. And one day I will meet you in St. Louis. You too. Thanks so much. Bye.